Hello, everybody. I'm Parsha Becky, and we are back for another week of Parsha. As I'm sure you will recall, we are currently in the middle of reading the first book of the Chumash, the book of Bereishit. Bereishit means at the start, and we are at the start of the Torah, at the start of the whole world, and at the start of our story. This week's Parsha is called Toldot, which could mean stories or it could mean family tree. And it's called that because it starts off by saying these are the stories of Abraham's family tree, starting with Abraham's son Yitzchak. It tells us that Yitzchak was 40 years old when he gets married to Rivka. Now, Rivka and Yitzchak both want to have kids, but for a long time they can't have any kids. And that makes them very sad. So Yitzchak prays to Hashem and says, Hey, Hashem would really like to have some kids. Can you please help us out? And Hashem helps them out. And Rivka gets pregnant. She's going to have a baby. But while Rivka's pregnant, she's very uncomfortable and it really hurts a lot. And she prays to Hashem. She says, Hashem, why does this hurt so much? That's not fun. And Hashem says, Rivka, I'll tell you why. It's because you're not pregnant with just one baby. You're going to have twins. And the twins are fighting each other inside you already because they're going to grow up to each become a great nation. And they're not going to get along. And in the end, the younger one will be the boss of the older one. Rivka says, thanks for telling me this cool news about my kids. And when the time comes to have her babies, sure enough, Rivka is having twins, just like Hashem said. And at this point in time, Yitzchak is 60 years old. Now, of course, even twins who have the same birthday can't be exactly the same age. There's always going to be an older twin and a younger twin who comes out first. So the first baby, the older twin, the one who comes out first, he's all red, which is, kind of normal for a newborn baby. But now, if you've ever seen a newborn baby, you'll know most babies when they're born don't have a lot of hair. But this baby was so hairy. He was completely covered in hair. They were like, this is the hairiest baby we have ever seen in our entire life. He is so hairy that we're going to name him Harry. So they name him Esav, which means hairy. And if you've ever seen like those barrel of monkey toys where you pull out one monkey and the next one's hooked onto its tail, you can imagine what this looked like when they are delivering the babies. Because they pull out hairy Esav and the next baby is hooked onto his foot because the second baby is holding onto Esav's heel. And they said, that's so funny that one baby is holding the other baby's heel. Let's name the second baby Heel. So they name him Yaakov, which means heel. And Heel and Harry grow up. Yaakov and Esav grow up. And Esav is very outdoorsy. He's a jock. He loves running around and playing sports outside. He likes hunting. He spends his days outside using his outdoor voice. And Yaakov prefers to stay inside. He's a quiet kid. He likes to stay inside and read or do other quiet things like that. He's inside all day. Now, I'm sure all my viewers know that parents are not supposed to play favorites. And if somebody who is not an only child asks their parents, hey, mom and dad, who's your favorite kid? The correct answer, of course, is I don't have a favorite. I love you all equally. But Yitzchak and Rivka never got that memo. And they're playing favorites. And Yitzchak says, hey, Esav, you're my favorite kid. I like you best because I like how you always hunt and give me meat. Thanks for being my favorite kid, Esav. And Rivka's favorite kid is Yaakov. And Rivka says, hey, Yaakov, I like you best because I'm playing favorites too. Now, one day, Yaakov's at home, like he usually is, and he's cooking. He's cooking up a stew. He's making a red lentil soup. It's a delicious soup. You should try it. Uh, and meanwhile, Esav is outside all day. Esav's running around, hunting, doing sports. Now, imagine if you've had gym class all day long, you're going to be pretty tired by the end of the day. So Esav comes in, very tired, very hungry. He sees Yaakov's soup and he says, hey, give me some of that red stuff. It's funny that he couldn't just say the word soup. And in fact, it's so funny that he got a nickname from it. He gets nicknamed Edom, which means red. Because people are like, hey, red stuff. You want some more red stuff? Red stuff. So he got the nickname Red Stuff, Edom. And Yaakov's like, well, I could give you some of my red lentil soup, but I want something in exchange. I want to be the oldest. Now, obviously, Yaakov doesn't mean he wants to go back in time so that Yaakov can come out first. We already know that Esav is going to be older no matter what. But if you have any older or younger siblings, you might know how sometimes an older sibling might get a little bossy and say, well, you have to listen to me because I'm older. And Yaakov wants that. Yaakov wants to be thought of as the older. Obviously, he can't change their actual ages, but for how they behave, Yaakov is now going to be thought of as the older twin. And Esau says, hey, I don't care about being older. You can be older. You can be the oldest. I'll treat you like the oldest. I just want the red stuff. Give me the red stuff. And Yaakov's like, you promise? And Esav's like, I promise. You're the oldest. Now I want some red stuff. And Yaakov's like, okay, just remember, I'm the older one now. And Yaakov gives Esav a bowl of his red lentil soup with some bread, and Esav eats his meal and leaves. Now, one day there is a famine in Israel, and before Yitzchak can even think of moving away, Hashem says, hey, Yitzchak, just so you know, you have to live in Israel. You are not leaving Israel. You have to stay in this country. That's where you live forever. And so Yitzchak and his wife Rivka moved to a city called Gerar. It's a little more food. They're staying in Israel, though. There's a king there named Avimelech. We've met him before. And Yitzchak and Rivka go to Gerar, and they pretend to be brother and sister. They're like, oh, yes, we are brother and sister. That's how we know each other. And after a while, they're hanging out in Gerar, and one day Avimelech looks at the window, and he sees, Yitzchak and Rivka there laughing together. Maybe they're kissing. Whatever he sees, it's obvious to him that they're married. And he calls them over. He's like, oh, so you two are married. So why'd you lie to me, huh? And Yitzchak says, oh, this is a very similar answer we've heard from Abraham. Yitzchak's like, oh, I'll tell you why I lied to you. It's because I know that Rivka is a very attractive woman. And I was afraid that if you knew I was married to her, you or other people here might murder me in order to marry her instead. Now, I personally enjoy not being murdered, so we lied to you. So Avimelech tells all his people, it's like, listen, nobody's allowed to bother this guy Yitzchak or his wife Rivka. Turns out they're married. And they move away. And Yitzchak starts planting stuff. He becomes a farmer. And everything he plants, like 100 times what he planted, grows for him. He's doing amazingly well. He's like the most successful farmer ever. And the people in the neighborhood get very jealous of him. And Avimelech finally says, you know what, Yitzchak, you got to move away because you're making people jealous. And obviously it's your fault that you're doing so well. So get out of here. So Yitzchak moves a little farther away and he prays to Hashem, and Hashem promises Yitzchak that land. And after a while, Avimelech and his pals come back. They knock on Yitzchak's door, and Yitzchak's like, "What are you doing? You kicked me out. You asked me to leave, so why are you visiting me now?" Avimelech's like, "Yeah, but now we realize that Hashem is on your side, so we want to make a deal with you where we won't bother you and you won't bother us, and we'll be friends." And Yitzchak's like, "Well, I wasn't bothering you anyway, so that's a great deal for me. So yeah, I'll make that deal." So they make the deal. Esav and Yaakov are getting older. When Esav turns 40, just like his Yitzchak got married when he was 40, just like his dad, Esav gets married when he was 40. But instead of stopping and just marrying one person, Esav goes ahead and marries two people, which is like kind of more people than the normal amount of people to marry. And also, both of the people he marries are women from the neighborhood who don't believe in Hashem. They're not such nice people, and like they don't share the same values with his family. And Yitzchak and Rivka really have a hard time getting along with the two girls that Esav married. And it's like, it's always awkward at family reunions because they don't get along and it's uncomfortable for everyone. Now, Yitzchak is getting older. And as he gets older, his eyesight is getting worse. This often happens when people get a little older, their eyesight gets worse. Like I'm old, so I wear glasses. But Yitzchak has gotten so old that even wearing glasses, he can't see very well. Now, one day, Yitzchak calls Esav over and he says, "Hey, Esav, my favorite kid, I want you to do something for me. I want you to go hunting. And you are going to cook the meat that you hunt for me. You're going to cook it up the way I like it. You're going to bring me the food to eat. And after I taste it, I'm going to give you a special bracha that I've saved up for you that I want to give to you before the end of my life." So Esav heads out to hunt, but little do they know, Rivka overheard that whole conversation. And Rivka calls Yaakov over and she says, "Hey, Yaakov, my favorite son, guess what I overheard? I overheard your dad Yitzchak telling Esav to go hunt him and cook him some food, and Yitzchak's going to give Esav a special bracha." And Yaakov's like, "Okay, great. That's very nice for Esav. Thanks for sharing." And Rivka's like, "No. You're getting that bracha. Just bring me in a sheep from outside. I will cook it up. You're going to pretend to be Esav. You'll bring it to your dad, and he'll give you the bracha." And Yaakov's like, that sounds like a really bad idea. Like, what if he finds out that I'm lying to him and I get in big trouble instead of getting a bracha? And Rivka's like, no trouble. I'm your mom. Do what I say. Listen to your mom. And if there's any trouble, you'll say that you were doing what I said. So I'll get the trouble. I'll take the blame. You won't get in any trouble. I'll get all the blame if there's any blame. And you're just listening to your mom. And Yaakov's like, okay, but hang on. Because even though we're twins, Esav and I are nothing alike. Now, I know Yitzchak can't see very well, but he's very hairy. I'm not hairy at all. I don't smell like him. He spends his time outside. I spend my time inside. He's going to know the difference. And Rivka says, no problem. And she takes the sheep, and after she cooks the meat, she takes the fur from the sheep, which we don't eat, and she turns the fur into a pair of gloves and a scarf for Yaakov to wear. So he seems all hairy. He feels his neck and his hands are all hairy like Esav. And she takes some of Esav's old clothes that are lying around the house, and she tells Yaakov to put them on so he even smells like Esav. And then she cooks the food, she gives it to Yaakov, and Yaakov brings it to Yitzchak. Yaakov knocks on the door, and Yitzchak says, "Who is it?" And Yaakov says, "It's me, your son Esav." And Yitzchak says, "Are you sure you're Esav?" And Yaakov says, "Of course I'm sure I'm Esav. Who else would I be? I'm not Yaakov, I'm Esav." And Yitzchak says, "Okay, come here, Esav. Let me give you a kiss." So Yaakov goes over to Yitzchak, and Yitzchak gives him a hug and a kiss. He feels the furry gloves on his hands. He's like, "Well, he's hairy like Esav," and he gives him a big sniff, and he's like, "Well, he smells like Esav." And yet Yitzchak's like, "It's weird because his voice sounds just like Yaakov, but he feels like Esav and he smells like Esav. So I guess he's Esav." And he tastes the food, and he says, Yitzchak now says, "Okay, here's my special bracha for you. My bracha is that you should get the best things that grow in the ground, and the best things that come from the sky will belong to you, and you'll be the boss of your brother, and he has to work for you. And Hashem should be nice to everyone who's nice to you, and Hashem should punish anyone who's mean to you." And that's the bracha. And Yaakov says thanks, and he leaves. And just as Yaakov's leaving, Esav comes in with the food that he hunted and cooked, and he knocks on the door. And Yitzchak says, "Who is it?" And Esav says, "It's me, Esav." And Yitzchak says, "No, Esav was already here." And Esav says, "No, I wasn't. I just got home." And Yitzchak gets very upset. Yitzchak realizes what happened. And Yitzchak says, "I'm sorry, Esav, but I think your brother Yaakov pretended to be you. And I gave him the bracha that I saved for you, and it's his now, no take backs. So I'm sorry, Esav, but I don't have a bracha for you." And Esav's like, "But can't you give me just, don't you have one spare bracha?" And Yitzchak's like, I don't know what to tell you. I already made him the boss of you and everything. Esav starts to cry. And Esav says, "Please, just give me a bracha too. I want a bracha, Dad. Please let me have a bracha. Just one bracha, please." And Yitzchak says, "Well, I can try to give you a bracha, but it's not going to be as good. Here's the bracha that I have left for you," Yitzchak says. He says, "You're going to get to live in the best parts of the land and under the nicest parts of the sky. And you're going to have to work for your brother and do whatever he says. But when you get really, really, really sick and tired of working for him, you'll be able to stop working for him." And that's the bracha. And Esav is now really mad at Yaakov. Esav's like, "I hate Yaakov. Yaakov is so bad. Yaakov stole my bracha, and he made me get the bad bracha, and he stole the good bracha. I hate him so much." And Esav says, "When Yitzchak's out of the picture, I want to murder Yaakov." And Rivka hears about this. And Rivka's like, "Oh, I don't want my kid to get murdered by my other kid." She says, "Hey, Yaakov, bad news. Turns out Esav's really mad at you for stealing his bracha, and he wants to kill you. So I have an idea. You're going to run away to my brother. I have a brother named Lavan. He lives in the country where I came from, the country of Haran. So you're going to run away to Lavan. He'll let you stay with him because you're family. And it's just going to be a few days, just until Esav calms down. I'm sure he'll calm down in a few days. And in a few days, when Esav calms down, I'll shoot you an email. Okay, no, not an email. I'll send you a message, and you can come home, and everything will be back to normal." And it turns out Yitzchak also wants Yaakov to go to Lavan, but for a different reason. Yitzchak said, "Hey, Yaakov, come here. I want you to, as you know, your brother Esav married a couple of girls who are from the neighborhood, and they're not so nice, and they don't share our family's values, and it's very hard for us to get along with them. So I want to avoid the same problem with you when you get married. So I want you to go to your mother's brother, to your uncle Lavan's house. He's from our family. He's raised his kids well. We know them. We trust their values. They're good people. And see if you can marry somebody from Lavan's family. Marry one of his daughters or something. And I hope that Hashem will protect you on your journey, and Hashem will give you the same bracha that Hashem gave to me and to Abraham." And Yaakov leaves. And Esav's like, "Oh, I didn't realize that Yitzchak wanted us to marry people from his family. Okay, I'll just marry a third person." And Esav goes ahead and marries Yishmael's daughter, Yishmael, the son of Abraham also. So he's like, "Great, I also married someone from our family. Problem solved." And that is the end of Parshat Toldot. And to find out what happens on Yaakov's journey, you're going to have to stay tuned for next week's Parsha. Shabbat Shalom.